And then now come January, we're at the singles outing, and I was going to them, but most of the time it was like older women. Like, it was just a time for me to fellowship with other people. So when I seen him at church, I thought he was there for a funeral, because there was a funeral happening at the same time.
Yeah, somebody died from going to these singles outings, and no, I'm just kidding.
That's what I have to deal with. Anyways, so we go, and I was shocked to see him like getting on the bus. I'm like, "You're going?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so the whole time, the other women were just listening to us, because we just like hit it off, and we just were talking and talking pretty much the whole entire time, which was a couple of hours. We went out shopping and out to dinner and then back to the church.
Yeah. And in that, at first, so I didn't see Percy, and it was all, no offense, right? No, older women. And again, I'm looking for somebody obviously my age, right? It's not that I have anything against anyone older than me. It's just, that's obviously, if I'm single, I want to be somewhere around my age, right? I would talk to a woman closer to my age. So I'm like, man, what's going on here in my head, And when I seen Percy, inside I lit up, I was like, oh, wow, she's here, and boom, boom, boom. And so, like Percy said, we kicked it off. And then, God really worked in me, because as we kicked it off, like, I was even inside, like, saying, okay, should I ask her for a number? Should I not?
I wasn't really thinking that.
Before Christ, like, that wasn't a problem to me, And so now I see the change that, again, I don't want to make mistakes. I really don't, especially when it comes to that, So, and I seen that I honor God, but as I'm going over it, I'm like, you know what? This is to seek a friendship. Why am I getting her number, right? It's not to do anything wrong or evil. It's to get to know her, to talk about the Lord, stuff like that. So, and we're both single. So I asked her for her number, and she gave it to me. And Percy texted me first. Let me put that on the record.
On my defense, okay, hold up. During that time, like I said earlier, I was on zeal for the Lord. And when we had talked, I could tell that he had a lot of knowledge of the word. And I was like, man, maybe I can learn. Maybe we can do a Bible study. And I was trying to read the word by myself, and there's a time where you need a fellowship with other people to kind of sharpen you while you're reading the word. Sometimes, especially when you're new in the faith, I feel that you don't understand everything like you do fast forward 8 years. And so I really felt like, man, maybe we can do like a Bible study, and he could teach me more about the word. Because during that time, I was not thinking about a boyfriend. I wasn't thinking about marriage. Remember, I am okay with being by myself, but I didn't have a lot of Christian friends pretty much at all. So he was like one of my first Christian friends, really, now thinking about it. And that's how I came into it. And so then we went out on, I don't consider it a date, because again, I was looking at it as a friendship, but he considers it a date.
Yeah, you guys can let us know in the comments if you consider this a date or not. So she'll explain.
So what was it? I text him, we got back and forth, and we were like, hey, maybe we should meet. There's a place here where we live. It's called Donut Delights. I was going on a missionary trip actually to Washington, D.C. Yep. So I was like, you know what? Let's meet up just right before I have to leave and go catch the bus. And we did. And there we just kind of talked. That's when I told him I was married before. Yeah.
She got a little deeper there.
Yeah, I did get a little deeper there. Because I'm very transparent. This is who I am. You either love it or you don't. And so that I wanted to be very upfront and, just kind of put it out there because,
yeah, I don't know. And me too. I was being transparent too. I was engaged previously. So that was that. But to me, a date is like, okay, you're setting up a time to meet together with the person of the opposite sex. So anyway, it is what it is. You guys can leave a comment about that part.
We're here now, right? That's what matters.
Yeah. So now, between the time of that first initial, when we went out together from the church single outing, 7 days later, from that span, for me, as me and Percy communicated through text and calls and stuff like that, I really felt that she was the woman I've been waiting for. So a couple things on that. through one person, God told me one time, describe how Percy would look, like with glasses, kind of like her body type, serving the Lord. But one thing that the person did say, though, that she was behind a pulpit. So me, I don't know if I told you that.
You didn't tell me that.
But me, I feel like, Percy definitely has encouraged women, and I believe she has even more to do in that area. I really do. I see a lot, and I think a lot of people would benefit from that. But anyway, so that was one. Another one was through Pastor Lou. Pastor Lou was like, hey, look, because one time too, like I was afraid at one point to even go on a date, right? Mm-hmm. And so Lou was like, listen, man, you got to go out, don't be afraid. And I'm like, and then my other pastor said the same thing at the same time. I'm like, man, this is weird. Like, they've never done this. You know what I mean? So that's when I went on the first date. That was wrong. So that was bad advice, Lou. You should have said that a week later, not the week before, bro. Nah. So anyway, so when I went on, when I went on that date, it was like, that was just horrible. Boom, boom, boom. But when Lou, on that week that I went out with Percy, we talked about that too. And he was like, yeah, man, she's on fire for the Lord. She's taking the Lord serious. You are too. And I told her, Lou was like, yo, you remember one day I told you God only knows if you've seen your wife? And I said, yeah. He said, you know what, for me, he said, I'm not saying this is prophetic or not. He said, I seen Percy being your wife.
That's crazy.
And so for me, that week, I told Lou a little bit about the other testimony thing. And I was like, look, man, if that happens, I said, you'll be the best man at my wedding, if we get married. If it don't happen, then we ain't telling nobody about this. And we just started laughing on the phone. So lo and behold, that we were heading that path to actually get married, and Lou does become the best man of the wedding. So we'll get more into that piece. But within that week, I was for sure that Percy was my wife. And for me, just like if you're familiar with anybody, like you preach a word or teach a word, or you feel that God gives you something, like he tells you something's going to happen, and you really believe that by faith, by trusting God, like, okay, he proved himself in these other areas. So now in this area, he's telling me the same. So that was what was happening with me. So I really knew that she was my wife, but I realized that Percy didn't see that the same way I did. And I could tell by our conversations and stuff. And I knew too, for me not to jump the gun, because that's another thing too. Within those 2 years me serving the Lord, I was quick. Boom, 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 boom. Just any little thing, I would say it right away. And some people found it kind of weird, or all kind of stuff. But within that 2 years now, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I shouldn't mention this until God tells me. Like, yeah, let me believe it. But what I did do is I told a few people that were close to me at that time. So I told some of the youth from that were real close to me, like 2 of them from my former church, and I told my Aunt Belinda, and some people were like, listen, man, if that's what you believe, you have a relationship with the Lord, you believe that, then praise God, then that's your wife, and boom, boom, boom. Some other people I started telling, like my family members, my family members, they started getting the word, started spreading around. Some of them like, man, you guys are you're crazy, what are you talking about, all kind of stuff like that. So for me though, within 3 days later, so we're talking a total of 10 days now, within 7 days I knew she was my wife. 3 days later, I felt the Lord telling me, okay, you got to tell her that. And I said, man, this is crazy. Like, this is, and I'm thinking this in my carnal mind, like you would be thinking. Like, yo, imagine if you tell somebody 10 days of you talking, like, oh, you're the wife, or you're the husband that God has for me. Mm-hmm. You'll think that person's crazy. You know what I mean? So anyway, I remember a testimony in my former church, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but there was a guy there who went through something similar. So I called him and let him know what was going on. He was like, dude, you got to tell her. Just do it. And this guy has been married now for years, and they've had some ups and downs too in their marriage. But anyway, they're still married. So anyway, I took that as encouragement. I took that as strength. And I remember we went to Cody's on Park Ave. And a long story short, Percy was impressed by some of the things I did. And guys, I got to say this because we got to keep doing stuff like this. I would open the door for her to let her in the car.
He still does.
And I still do. I don't, now that we're married with kids though, this is the difference though. I don't do it every time because we have our kids. We're kind of more in a rush. But when we do our date nights, I still do that. When we have time to ourselves, more time, I make sure when we're going out, I open a door or close the door. And sometimes, very few times, I do it around the kids. But anyway, that's something I do. So Percy was impressed by that, and she looked at me and she says, "So for how long would you keep doing this for?" She would ask questions, and I said, "Oh, I'll keep doing it," you know. And I said, "That's no problem for me." So anyway, she was impressed by that. But in the restaurant in Coley's, I felt strongly like, you got to tell her that she's the woman I have for you. And I was like, okay, God. And I like to do little jokes here and there, if you know me real well. But for me, I felt like no jokes, no plan B, no joking or no nothing like that. You're going to tell her for real. And that's what I did. But at first, I started off, talking about foreshadowings of Jesus from the Old Testament to the New. And I was like, look, for me, I honestly believe, I told her some of the things, like when I talked to Lou about the vision that someone else had about her. I said, I honestly believe, as I pray about this, that you're the woman I've been waiting for. That not that I'm gonna marry you tomorrow, but that I don't have to go to no more single outings. I don't have to do any of that. You're the wife I've been praying for. You're the woman God has for me.